How did you train your cats to not wake you up? By rolling over and stubbornly feigning sleep if they did. Their brains are little cause-effect engines. If standing next to your face and yelling until you feed them doesn't actually produce that result, they'll eventually stop doing it. You just have to outlast them. So we tried doing this with the cat we were looking after. We would not get up until the alarm clock went off. One morning, he was standing by my head and screaming, but not in my ear. I looked up and saw that he had his little face 1 inch from the alarm clock because we only woke up when the alarm clock went off. He decided that it was the alarm clock that he needed to scream at until it woke up. Chuckling to myself, remembering the time I completely broke a scammer's brain by telling them I use Linux. Scammer, do you have an Apple or a Windows computer, please? Me, neither. I use Linux. No. I asked if you use an Apple or a Windows. Neither. What is the sticker? Is it a 4 boxes or is it an Apple with a byte? I don't use either of them. There's a third operating system called Linux. It isn't a PC or a Mac. Please tell me you understand. Do you know what I mean about Apple or Windows, sir? Yes, I'm a software developer. I understand completely. I'm telling you that you don't understand. It's called Linux, spelled Linux. Type it into Google. But is it an Apple or a Windows computer, sir? BioShock Infinite was one of the most hyped games of its time, but its only lasting legacy was that the smut of its main character was responsible for several breakthroughs in 3D animation. What? All of the Overwatch smut you see is based off tech that was specifically developed to make stuff for this very specific character. Blender animation went through so many innovations because people wanted 3D smut of her. It's comparable to when film developed color. 3D Overwatch smut. Ayn Rand writes Atlas Shrugged. I'm just gonna leave this here. You can vaccinate your kids, and then hold a raw potato to the wound where the needle entered, and it will suck the toxins from the vaccines out, leaving only the non-toxic parts. It's a great way to stay healthy and thwart Big Pharma. This will yield better results than any amount of time spent trying to educate these people. Same energy as that time in college, I told a girl that the tarot says she needs to go call her mom and start going to therapy, and she friggin' did. Absolutely a Granny Weatherwax moment. You need to move the outhouse because its presence is bothering the forest spirits, and they're cursing you. Because trying to explain about bacteria from the outhouse contaminating the well wasn't working. Sometimes you gotta ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want results? And then act accordingly. Britain's most tattooed man was unable to bypass UK's new age check systems due to his face being mistaken for a mask. People are clowning on this guy on Reddit, but let's pause for a minute and ask. So what happens if someone has a skin condition? What if part of their face has been burned? What if they're missing their eyes? And so what if they just have a frig ton of tattoos? Recognition algorithms are aligned with the most average/normal features, which means any deviation gets denied access to crap we didn't need age verification for 1 year ago. I don't care if it's a choice versus not. Don't care if it's accessing smut or Wikipedia. This needs to stop. Maybe a hot take, but I think the fact minors can access certain content by just clicking a button that says, yes, I'm totally over 18, trust me, is like totally fine, to be honest. It's a non-issue. I don't care if curious teenagers are looking at smut. They've been doing that for as long as it has existed. I'd rather teens explore things through images on the internet than rush into real-life experiences when they're not ready for it, you know? The UK is trying to put stricter age verification in place, which in turn is becoming an online privacy nightmare. And like, for what? Who is it helping? Why is this a problem? Don't ever let a recipe tell you how many chocolate chips to put in. You measure that crap with your heart. One time, I had a dream that I was making peanut butter chocolate chip cookies, and most of them were the regular measurements and cups and stuff. But at the end of the recipe, instead of saying 2.5 cups of chocolate chips, it said 627 chocolate chips. So when I woke up, I made some peanut butter chocolate chip cookies. And instead of measuring out chocolate chips, I counted them and suffered a lot of odd looks from my family for it. Well, it turns out that 627 chocolate chips is the amount that the recipe called for, 2.5 cups. Not only that, but 627 was the exact amount of chocolate chips that we had left in the house. Forbidden knowledge was granted to you that night. I interviewed a Gen Z girlie 6 months ago, and in the interview, she told me that she doesn't like a challenge, has no interest in career progression, prefers to just do repetitive tasks, and will never complain about being bored. I hired her. One of the biggest reasons why everything sucks now is legitimately that we don't have enough of these people. They're the ones who used to keep the lights on and the business functioning at everything from restaurants to post offices, but now nobody's interested in hiring them. Every business needs a lifer who can teach new people how everything works, who knows what's up in the system, who knows what the obscure solutions are, and who can help calm down the butthead regulars because they know them more personally. The Powerpuff Girls' main villain, Mojo Jojo, has a very distinctive speech pattern where he repeatedly explains the meanings of the words he's he's using. For instance, when he says he will conquer the world, he'll go on to say that he will take it over through military force. According to Craig McCracken, this was based on the Super Dictionary, which uses the exact same cadence as Mojo Jojo's dialogue, and is mostly only known to people through the 40 cakes meme. When no one was looking, Lex Luthor took 40 cakes! He took 40 cakes! That's as many as 4 tens, and that's terrible. What? Kid today, probably like 6 years, came up to me and was like, teacher, what's your name? And I was like, Aisha. Also, I'm not a teacher. And he was like, okay, Aisha, I need help. And I was like, okay, buddy, what's wrong? And he showed me this chunk of metal he'd found sitting in the sun that he was just carrying around, and it was super sharp and super hot from the sun. And he was like, my hand hurts. And I was like, okay, put that down. Does it still hurt? And he did, and was like, no. And then he picked it up again and immediately went, my hand hurts. Again. And then I was like, kid, put that down and stop touching it. And he was like, okay, but when I touch it, my hand hurts. And I was like, please just stop touching that. If you don't touch it, your hand won't hurt. And this went on for like another 2 minutes before I got him to realize that if he stopped touching the metal, it would not hurt. Kids are so friggin' weird, man. There are gonna be people who won't like hearing this, but if you want to live in a world where mixed marriages, families, and adoptions, particularly POC adopting outside their race, aren't maligned and discriminated against, then you have got to get more chill about seeing someone partaking in something cultural that you don't think fits the race you perceive them as. It's a vague memory now. It was a vague memory even at the time I made this post, but I think what sparked this was remembering stupid comments I saw about a Chinese-American cookbook that were complaining about it being written by a white woman, and then I looked the white woman up, and the briefest research showed she was adopted as a child into a Chinese-American family, and just pinch his nose.
Fellas, is it cultural appropriation to inherit your family's culture but you don't pass the blood quantum test?
There's been plenty of pushback against YouTube's plan to age check users by using an AI to analyze everyone's watching habits, but amidst that, I spotted this playlist circulating among some teens. Grown-up videos. Watch these to trick the AI. Interesting. They're trying to trick the AI by watching videos that have a primarily adult viewer demographic. Well, I'm a curious fella, so naturally I have to take a look-see, and low back pain causes and 7 worrying signs. 12 dementia signs most people miss until it's too late. Guide to taking care of a newborn baby. I saw my sister 11 watching a video on how to file taxes because of this. I'm simultaneously amused at the perception of what kids think adults watch, fascinated that they're thinking to take these measures, and saddened that they're forced to live in a stupid digital panopticon. I remember being 17 and in a special class for graduating seniors where the teacher was like, you'll graduate and be adults soon. This is the time to ask all those important questions about adulthood that school might not have prepared you for. And someone raised her hand and was like, how do we pay taxes? Like, when we have to do that, I've been here for 6 years and no one's ever told me when I have to do my taxes. And there was just this roar of agreement from the rest of us as we all realized that we all were stressed out over the looming specter of adults pay taxes. You will be an adult in 2 months. So the adult got the whiteboard out and walked us through the extremely relieving news that if you don't have a job, you don't have to pay taxes. And if you do have a job, you take the W-2 you get in the mail to the nearest library sometime in the winter and they help you with it. And it's that easy. One guy was so mad about this. He was like, my mom is always threatening me with taxes, and that's it? That's all? It's just paperwork? Like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Taxes. Transit myth. If the bus isn't full, it isn't succeeding. Wrong. A bus takes up about as much dynamic space on the street as 2 cars. You only need 3 passengers on a bus for it to be a better use of space than cars. I read a study once on the fuel efficiency of various types of commuter vehicles, car, bus, train, on a per-person basis, and the number of people needed riding public transit to match the efficiency of cars is shockingly low. A bus needs to carry like 3 to 4 people to be fuel efficient, and trains require 2 to 3 per train car. Both often carry 24 or more during peak hours, more than justifying any perceived requirements for efficiency for the train or bus to provide service the entire day. First day as a small town sheriff and you discover that some of the convicts you're transporting managed to escape in the night, and since the penalty for letting prisoners escape is death, and the penalty for being late because you are looking for escaped prisoners is also death, you decide to free all of them and go hide out in the wilderness for a bit. Except the convicts are super grateful, so they make you their leader, and it turns out they're decent guys who are exploited by a tyrannical government. So, long story short, you're crowdsourcing for a peasant uprising, and would anyone like to chip in? 3,650th day, and due to a series of unforeseen events, you are now the emperor and founder of the Han Dynasty. Wait a second, I just need to Google something. Huh. My father was a magician and a clown. When he died, we cleared out his old clothes and there was his clown suit. Oh, I'll take this down to the charity shop, said my mother, missing the part where no sane person is going to wear a clown suit. Nah, said I, have them dress him in it when they cremate him. There was a pause and my throwaway joke started to slowly solidify into, yeah, let's do that. A discussion was had with the mortician, who had a bit of a worry that the costume would involve giant clown shoes, which would prevent the coffin closing. Luckily, it wasn't that sort of outfit. I told this to my dear friend, who immediately envisaged someone trying to close a coffin onto a dead clown, only to have the big red nose go sad honk every time there was an attempt to close the lid. The awful hilarity rendered her incapable of standing. I'm watching Splash, 1984, which is a rom-com about a guy who falls in love with a mermaid. When she chooses a human name, she chooses Madison, and Guy says, that's not a real name, but alright, which seems to imply that Madison was not a name until at least the 80s, and all girls named Madison are actually named after the mermaid. Thought you should know. I think you might be right. I went to school with a girl named Madison who was born in late 1984, which I guess means her parents were some real early adopter mermaid friggers. Wait, frig, I forgot her twin sister's name was Ariel. Me, holding a pizza box and shouting, Sue! Customer walks up. Me, Sue? Customer opens the box, frowns, and sticks her finger in the pizza. I didn't order pepperoni. Me, with a voice devoid of any emotion. Sue? Customer, oh, no, I'm name. The actual Sue, materializing at my elbow. Is that a pizza for Sue? Me, would you like some free breadsticks to eat while we remake your pizza? Another customer touched it. Another customer sheepishly mumbles sorry. Sue, who has clearly worked with the public. You take as long as you need to, honey. 12 years on, Stardew Valley creator swears, on the honor of my family name, I will never charge money for a DLC or update for as long as I live. Concerned Ape won't violate this oath. King stuff. If you raise the price of the frigging hot dog, I will kill you. Costco co-founder to the CEO. Arizona iced tea founder continues to commit to 99-cent price amid tariffs. A big can of the popular beverage has remained the same since 1992, and it plans to stay that way. What would you do without clean water? Imagine if you couldn't drink a glass of water, brush your teeth, or even take a shower. How would that affect your entire life? 1 in 10 people on Earth right now don't have access to clean water, but we can change that if we work together. Team Water is the biggest creator crowdfunding campaign ever, and over the next month, we plan on raising $40 million to bring clean water to 2 million people. By partnering with local communities across over 6 continents, we are going to build solutions and open up life-saving water access. But we need your help. You can join the team by going to teamwater.org and donating. Even just $1 gives one person clean water for a year, and $20 would give them clean water for decades. Let's make history together with communities around the world, because water connects everyone, and everyone deserves clean water. For a compelling example of the limits of our understanding of the past, consider the case of A. Nasir. We don't actually know for certain that he was a dishonest merchant selling poor quality goods. Here's what we do know. Archaeologists have uncovered a collection of complaint tablets in what was likely his home. Accusing him of selling low quality copper is high grade. Multiple people called him a cheat, and they may well have been correct. However, another plausible interpretation is that A. Nasir kept these complaints as records of customers he refused to deal with, perhaps because they had falsely accused or threatened him to extort free copper. Both explanations fit the evidence equally well. My point isn't to defend or condemn A. Nasir, but to highlight that thousands of years later, the truth remains beyond our reach. Dolphins are evil is just a reactionary backlash to years of earnestly believing dolphins were all benevolence and rescuing sailors, only to find out they can be dangerous and violent like any other large wild animal. Sharks are nice is a similar phenomenon in the opposite direction. Pop culture portrays sharks as malevolent killing machines who crave human flesh, so when people realize they're just animals who don't attack people any more than other predators, they overcompensate into thinking you can just swim with great whites with no danger. The reality, of course, is that both dolphins and sharks are large wild animals who should be approached with caution and respect, if at all. It's probably best for you and the animal to admire them from a safe distance. Hello, my dear students. 2 reminders for you all. One is that your lab report on the Cellular Energetics Lab is due tomorrow night. Get to work on it if you haven't started. 2 is that we do meet for lab tomorrow. This is a very important meeting because we'll be reviewing for the lab final exam. However, past experience leads me to expect poor attendance for exam review sessions, so I've decided to give you all an incentive to come to class. Free snacks, you might wonder? Maybe bonus points. But no, the incentive is, if you guys show up tomorrow, I will bring my hawk so you can meet him. You might even get to pet him. am, attempting to get my students to friggin' come to class. Good news! Had an average of 17 out of 24 students in both classes show up to the review. That's 71% of the class. This is compared to an average 11 out of 24 in previous semesters. Bird worked! Also, for everyone in the notes who wanted to see the bird, I've got these pics pinned on my blog too, but here is the boy. I left the toilet seat up yesterday, and at 2 a.m. this morning, it finally happened. To all the women in my life, past and present, I apologize. Especially my grandma. I get it now. Hashtag my knees hit my chest. Hashtag folded like a lawn chair. Hashtag scariest moment of 2016. Hashtag I knocked everything off every counter on my way down. Hashtag all my life I had to fight. Hashtag so cold. Hashtag for some reason I yelled who is in here as I was falling. Hashtag thought I was being attacked. Hashtag I was still asleep. Hashtag survivor. I wish depression were an emergency. I wish someone could take one look at how sick I am and go, oh my god, we need to get you to a hospital. And then when we get there, I get rushed into surgery. And the surgeons say, it's a good thing you brought her here when you did. This is a seriously advanced case. And then they put me under and spend the next 10 hours pulling meters of long, sticky black strands of gunk out of my body, throwing it immediately into an incinerator so that it can't infect anyone else. And then they could stitch me back up and I could rest a few days. And when I leave the hospital, everyone can see how much better I am. And they congratulate me saying, well done, you've been so brave. I'm so glad you're okay. I love you. Was talking to a coworker today who explained that her grandfather was like Snow White, but Californian and an old man, and that the creatures of the forest would follow him around and presumably duet with him. When he died, the ravens sat in the trees outside for a week watching, taking turns. A horde of raccoons tried to break into the house every night, tearing at the siding. Eventually they gave up, but it was unsettling. Aw, they were checking on him, I said, like a normal person. Internally, I thought, maybe you could do the thing you do with dead pets, where you show them to the living pet so the living pet understands they're gone. But I guess if you did that to a bunch of scavenging species, they'd be like, well, that's very sad, but he is food now. So what you need for human sensibilities is some sort of transparent corpse barrier, like a see-through coffin. Oh, that's what the dwarves were doing. You've stopped paying attention to this conversation about the loss of a beloved family member. You gotta phase back in. If teenagers are ever being mean to you, just pull out any miscellaneous item you have on you at the moment and make up some bullcrap term to scare them. Teenagers, we're going to punch you. Me, pulling out spoon. Have you lot ever been Uncle Jimmy'd? Teenagers, we're going to kick you. Me, pulling out an electric toothbrush. Have y'all ever experienced a Norwegian Christmas? Teenagers, we're going to unlawfully take your money. Me, taking car keys out of my pocket. Say, have any of you ever had a Pacific Ocean garbage patch? Teenagers, we're going to call you mean names. Me, taking Costco brand pair of socks out of my purse. It's been a while since I gave someone a Tropic of Capricorn. Rice is the perfect food, and Westerners should eat more of it. I'm so serious. You can season it, you can drizzle it with sauce, you can cook it in broth or coconut milk, you can add spices, sugar, butter, sesame oil, rice vinegar, you can mix it with garlic and scallions and veggies, you can fry it and scramble an egg in it. It goes with meat and seafood and protein. It reheats great with a bit of water. It's cheap, insane shelf life, ideal for bulk buy discounts, many types and shapes and textures. There are thousands of recipes ranging from China to India to Japan to the Middle East to Latin America to Europe, and a rice cooker cooks it for you. The many splendors that await you. Just in, YouTube will begin using AI to monitor user behavior and psychology to determine whether viewers in the US are over or under the age of 18. Well, this friggin' sucks. Imagine having to dox yourself because you made the mistake of watching a 4-hour Mighty Morphin Power Rangers retrospective, and the AI decided you were 14 and not 42, like the actual demographic for those videos. Sad. Like, this obviously sucks if you're an adult who enjoys watching animation or doll YouTube videos, but also, I don't think YouTube should be tracking 16-year-olds because they're afraid of them hearing bad words. Extremely funny to me that Harley Quinn's real name is apparently Harleen Quinzel, a name that sounds less real than Harley Quinn. They should do that with more comic characters. Batman real name, Matthew Manning. Daredevil real name, Darius Devilson. Doctor Strange real name, well, okay, that one doesn't count. I have some very good news for you about Black Bolt's real name. Black Bolt, Blackagar Boltagon. Now that's what I'm talking about. God, I love comics. Why are they like that? People panic about, but what if kids pick up bad ideas from it? When I was a kid, Power Rangers got banned at school because we all thought it was incredibly cool and kept trying to kick each other in the head. No one bothered explaining those are trained actors and it's all practiced. They don't act actually hurt each other, and you're not good at that yet. They just banned it. So we went to the park after school and read Kim's smuggled copy of the Power Rangers magazine and kicked each other in the head there instead. This is a metaphor, but it's also literally true. So much kicking in the head. God forbid parents actually talk to their teenagers. What do I have to do to go to events where people are dressed nicely and there are plates of free cheese cubes? Go to the inaugurations of little known artists' exhibitions. We are always begging for people to attend. There actually is the hack to invite your whole family, but tell them to pretend they don't know you. People with money are more willing to buy your work if they think many people likes it. So your mere presence eating our cheese and canapes will be a great helps. Please bring whoever you want to. Don't mind if I do. I'll dress like an eccentric weirdo if that helps. One of the most annoying feelings in ADHD is the can't get started with anything feeling. Like your ADHD is screaming you have to do something. You can't just rest. Resting isn't a thing. Even if you are resting, it's by doing something. But nothing works. You try to watch something. It's not right. You can't. Read? Can't read right now. Play? Nah, none of these games seem fun. Make something? You're not feeling any of these projects right now. Social media? It's boring or worse right now. So find something else. It's like you're not moving, but it's because you're too tense to do anything, just vibrating in place. Having a giant snake hurtle towards you and start checking you out can be life-threatening, even if the snake doesn't try to bite you, he added. Panic is deadly. The team suggests that divers should stay still and let the sea snake investigate them using its tongue. Our study shows that keeping calm is the key. The snake is not attacking you, Shine told CNN. He just thinks that you may be a female snake, and once he works out that's not the case, he'll wander off to look for love elsewhere. Aw, he's just looking for love. Are you his beautiful wife? You are not his beautiful wife. Sad snooting. Still blows my mind that Elmo, Grover, and Kermit were all legitimate, relatively common names before the Muppets made it impossible to name your child that. There was a president named Grover. Theodore Roosevelt's son was named Kermit. Now that's truly leaving a mark on culture. Can someone do that graph thing with the frequency of names over time and put a dot on it when the Muppets and Sesame Street came out? Kermit, Elmo, Grover. Sesame Street started in 1969 and basically made the popularity of these names absolutely tank. Every UK petition is like this. Good thing, please. We think the UK needs this. Government responded, no. Government responded to repeal the Online Safety Act. The government has no plans to repeal the Online Safety Act and is working closely with Ofcom to implement the act as quickly and effectively as possible to enable UK users to benefit from its protections. Genuinely not an exaggeration. They're always like, we have no plans to do this good thing. Yeah, we friggin' know, my guy. That's why we signed the friggin' petition, to get you to do that without us marching on London like it's 1381. I love saying I scavenged a working microwave in the Boylands, but nobody ever knows the reference and it breaks my heart. Like, the first time I ever saw this, I laughed so hard I started choking on spit, but it's just not the kind of thing you can share with the average person in your life. This world is so cruel. I was a good boy today. Scavenged a working microwave in the Boylands. Miss Lilith rewarded me by giving me the chance to high-five her. My little legs tried and tried, but I couldn't jump up high enough to slap palms. Got tiring, but she told me, maybe one day. No one's ever mad at me unless they tell me so is the best assumption I've ever made. I try to follow this, but it's hard. Also, sometimes people aren't honest. I sure don't go up to someone I'm mad at and tell them I am. Sorry for tag watching, but you still have to act like they aren't mad at you, IMO, because it's the mad person's duty to make it known if they want anything changed. It is never anyone's duty to be a mind reader. If I'm mad at someone and am remaining quiet about it, it is because I do not want them to know that I'm mad. Please respect my boundaries and assume that I'm not mad. If you're worried that I'm mad, consider the possibility that I'm mad for reasons I know are stupid and do not want to make it your problem. One time, a pal of my pals was having a tough time selling their work in an art exhibit and called us up on the last day, us being about 8 students who are very hungry and also bored. We put on the nicest/artsiest clothes we had available. One dude had a legit fancy suit and put on some shades which were bright pink. He looked like a movie star, I swear. And rolled up to the show in pairs, separately. Fine Art Pal has some nice paintings, but nobody is really paying attention to them. So after getting some fancy cheese cubes in a manner that did not betray that we were actually a ravenous pack of starving students, we casually wander around the show, and then, fairly individually, drift to to a stop by their work. Some of us even walked away, then came back a bit later, captivated by the art. It was actually really nice, but recall, we were all poor as crap and this was a help hustle. Our group's interest naturally caught other folks, and eventually there was a small clump of about 15 people musing over this art. And within 10 minutes, the biggest piece had been snatched up by a shrewd investor. By the end of the exhibit, every single piece was sold. It helped pay off the artist's student debt, and on that success, they got into another exhibit. They've been doing well ever since. I keep getting fines for excessive water consumption. It's not my fault that the basement prison cells all need their own toilets and showers. And like, the prisoners are not pulling their weight at all. All they do is sleep and be scared of the rats all day instead of painting with the easels I provided. So the fines are really putting a financial strain on the household. If I didn't need them for their plasma, I would have killed them all already, because this is not as financially lucrative as I thought it would be in The Sims 4. When I was 12, I babysat this girl for a few years, and she would come to me and show me her art, drag me by my wrists and point at the pieces she'd made during the week, and she'd be like, "Do the voice!" And I'd put on a sports announcer Olympic-style voice and be like, "Such form! This level of coloring! Why, I haven't seen such perfection in Crayola in a long time. And what is this? Why, Jeff, now this is a true risk. It seems she's made a monochrome pink canvas. I haven't seen this attempted since winter 1932. And I gotta say, Jeff, it's absolutely splendid." And she'd fall back giggling. At the end of every night, she'd check with me, "Did you really like it?" And I'd say yes and talk about something I noticed and tucked her in. She was just accepted into 3 major art schools. She wrote me a letter. Inside was a picture from when she was younger, monochrome pink. "Thank you," it said, "to somebody who saw the best in me." This is why I don't like movies and shows. I know it's all fake, so how could it be entertaining? Preserving this awesome comment before I block them for unrelated bigotry. Not to kick the wasp's nest harder, but the notes on this post have revealed something fascinating. A surprising number of people seem to think the purpose of fiction is to trick them into believing it's real, or at least highly plausible, rather than just telling an engaging story that everyone knows is fake. Like the suspension of disbelief is a con pulled on rubes and the uneducated, rather than a collaboration you entered when you picked up a piece of big fake fiction to entertain you. Standing up and blacking out for a few seconds is just transitioning from a cutscene to the actual gameplay. You motherfuckers need to eat salt is what that means. Fun fact, antidepressants can cause low sodium levels. When I was on them, I didn't know this, and my parents hated that I craved salt because salt is unhealthy, so I didn't get enough and blacked out and got dizzy a lot. If you're on antidepressants, make sure to get enough salt. I know media says salt equals bad, but I promise your body needs it. Is that what that's been about? I've been blacking out constantly. What the frig? As someone with an undiagnosed disability, 99% sure it's fibromyalgia, that I've had since I was a little kid, I've never understood why adults feel the need to enter the Pain Olympics whenever a kid says they're in pain. I cannot tell you how many times an adult told me over the years that "You're too young to be in that kind of pain," or the classic "Wait until you're my age," insinuating that I was a little wimp who could never grasp what true pain really is. Just yesterday, I was in class and the guy near me mentioned that his back hurt, which our teacher heard and said, "You're too young, just wait until your 50s, then it'll really hurt." And I hear this guy very quietly say that he has scoliosis. It's so annoying. Why do you need to win the Pain Olympics? Why do you need to prove to a child that your life is harder than theirs? This is the reason I didn't know I had chronic pain until I was 16. So, I live on the 4th floor of an apartment building that faces a fairly busy street. It's on a hill, so car noises are pretty regular over the course of the day. Because I'm high above the street, you obviously can't see the cars unless you look out the window, right? But sometimes the sun reflects off the car roofs or whatever, and so there'll be a light on my ceiling as a car passes by. So my cat, whenever he hears a loud engine, day or night, he looks at my ceiling, even if there is no refraction going on. To him, those are the sounds of light on the ceiling. Sometimes the light appears and there's a loud noise. It's 8 p.m. and a truck just passed and he watched the ceilings of the car move past my windows. No reflection this time of night, but trucks are ceiling creatures. And I just think that's such a it's a good correlation, buddy. You figured it out. You're wrong, but you're so smart. My personal theory is that if media is really good, there isn't really space, if you will, for fans to add or change perspectives on it. Too dense, too complete. Like how coral won't grow on plastic because it's too smooth, whereas some half-baked hot garbage has got all kinds of plot holes, incomplete characterization, warped timelines, missing world building, and other spaces for fans to colonize, like coral growing on a sunken battleship. And then if a series just sucks too much, it's not fun to interact with at all, and people won't fandomize it because it's toxic. Like how coral won't grow on sunken piles of burnout tires. I call this the fandom barrier reef theory. I could never own a parrot. They are splendid and delightful, joyful creatures, but I could not match their friggin' whimsy. If I woke up at 4:45 a.m. on a Tuesday to the sound of some gleeful, feather-cloaked varmint doing aerial somersaults all over the house while singing the world's most high-pitched whistle nightcore one-man a cappella cover of Funky Town, I'd eat it. Every TikTok video of a parrot doing something charming should begin and end with a 15-second clip of the words, "This bird is a flying toddler that costs $3,000 and never dies," over and over again. The thing about Lovecraft's work is that he did write about some genuinely frigged up critters, but he doesn't seem to have had a clear picture of which ones those are. Dog that inhabits right angles and sapient color are treated as exactly as mind-bending as like guy who looks like a fish in Big Penguin. The idea that all of existence is a fictional dream of a sleeping god creature from an entirely different reality that could wake up at any moment, ending all life that never truly existed at all, is a fascinatingly terrifying concept, but the god is not nearly as popular as the really big guy who is Squid. Most of those iPad babies you're seeing are probably sick of that friggin' tablet too. A lot of parents are very bad at parenting and don't like their children. They don't want to talk to them, be around them, or do anything with them. You know, the things kids need and will remember the most once they're grown, so they train them from an early age that they should always be distracting themselves with something as to not be in the way or annoying the adults. For me, it was books and TV when I was little and computers later on. That's all I did because it was all I could do without getting yelled at, and it was the closest to human interaction I could get most of the time. Everyone loves to make fun of and complain about iPad kids, but nobody thinks about the struggle of navigating life as an adult when you were forced to spend your entire childhood keeping yourself distracted so your parents didn't have to acknowledge your existence. How to successfully study in the library. Bring all of your materials with you. Find a nice quiet spot void of distractions. Make sure to take little breaks every half hour or so. Maybe bring a little snack. Don't look at the giant floating baby. Just don't. Try to forget about the giant floating baby in the library. Use different colors of highlighters to organize your notes. You folks think this is like a friggin' Doctor Who or Phineas and Ferb reference? But nah, this is the crap I gotta put up with every day. I thought this was one of the joke posts that are like a bunch of normal advice with one weird unhinged thing buried in the middle, as if it too is normal advice, but it was just like an actual post. Like 10 years ago, I made a silly post about my leopard gecko, and someone reblogged it and added their very long and graphic Undertale Sweet Home Alabama Mpreg egg-laying fanfiction to it while saying my pet had inspired it. When I told them I found that really disturbing, they freaked out and went on a months-long campaign where they kept trying to toaster bath bait me. Like 3 years ago, I posted a stupid text exchange my partner and I had shared, and someone reblogged it and added their graphic "Our flag means death, first time butt coitus fanfiction" to it while saying my relationship inspired it. When I told them I found that really inappropriate and weird, they freaked out, then sent multiple people to angrily tell me to delete my reply because they couldn't have known that was weird. Then they nuked their blog. There's no moral to this story. It's just weird that it happened twice. Did I tell you guys how much my boss spent on food delivery apps last year? The answer is 95,000 Australian dollars. This is just under the average full-time adult salary, which is about 100K. When we asked how this is possible, he said, "Oh, we just order it multiple times a day." That is about $260 worth of food delivery every single day for a year. Today he called me and I picked up, and he said, "Hold on, I just took a bite of my muesli bar." And I said, "You called me?" We call him Uber Eats Boy. Uber Eats George. My favorite thing right now is how mad the official French language people are that parts of African languages are getting mixed into French. A huge percentage of the world's French speakers are in Africa, and language evolves. So there's a lot of African phrases and speech patterns being incorporated into French. The French Language Academy is losing their crap because European French people pick up African French from social media and are ruining the fancy schmancy purity of the language. It's hilarious. The best part of this post is the French people responding with rants about how much they friggin' loathe l'Académie Française. I love folklore so much because depending on the location and era it comes from, it's either the most terrifying concept or the dumbest thing you've ever heard. Mexican folklore. You think this place is a normal location? You fool! Everyone knows this place is the scary location. British folklore. There's a little beast in your house. Make sure you give it the necessary porridge, otherwise it might turn to mischief. German folklore. For the love of God, do not trust hot people, and do not trust babies, and do not trust short men, and do not trust Christmas, and do not trust sausage, and do not trust the elderly. And US folklore. This giant boy from Texas is God's favorite. Looking at new popular collectible, ask the people if it's objects or gambling. They don't understand. Pull out illustrated diagram explaining what is objects and what is gambling. They laugh and say, it's a good collectible, sir. Look up how to buy a collectible. It's gambling. Wait, are Labubus blind bags? Labubus are blind bags, but they're also blind bags with some of the most insane dark patterns stacked on top. The online store for them has a thing where they tell you what you got the second you order it online, so that you can immediately try again if you didn't get the thing you wanted. There's also a shake feature that is designed to encourage you to buy more than one by narrowing down the possibility space on a creative options, so that if you're hunting a specific model, you can verify that it's guaranteed to be in one of these three if you buy all three right now. Sometimes, Tumblr is a lot like trying to explain to a toddler that you can't eat bugs and spiders because that's bad for you, and then someone shows up to lecture you about how spiders are a completely different class from insects. Also, you got centipede and millipede mixed up, so obviously you don't know anything about what you're talking about. And if you try to answer like, do you want me to just let this kid just eat bugs or what? They'll get offended because correcting you about being wrong has nothing to do with implying that anyone will be eating bugs off the ground. Obviously, nobody is stupid enough to be doing that in the first place. That's a straw man and insulting to every group of people ever. And then you look up at the other side of the yard, and the toddler is there right back at it, slurping up centipedes like spaghetti. The secret dungeon meshy sauce that's getting people to eat better is that it's so non-judgmental. Senshi and the rest of the gang never talk about what not to eat besides things that taste bad and literal poison. They don't even talk about health that much, besides the importance of a balanced diet. It's so much easier to eat well when you think of food simply as something your body needs, and that it's often worth the extra effort to make it taste good, especially when you understand how to connect things your body needs with things that taste good. I love that when Marcel says she really wants some cured ham, Senshi says, oh, that means your body is craving fat, which is actually a very good and normal thing. Let's go kill a snake chicken and have a picnic. The thing is, even if you were lucky and your parents taught you how to clean, they probably didn't teach you how to clean the stuff you clean with, like brushes, mops, sponges, rags, and so on, or how to clean your cleaning appliances, like a dishwasher, clothes washing machine, and clothes dryer and its ducts, if you have a ducted dryer, or a carpet cleaner, vacuum, or how to clean up clean messes, like spilled bleach or detergent. My parents threw away all of these things, even the vacuum cleaners and the dryer, when they got too dirty to function, because no one even told them that they could be cleaned. Cost them thousands of dollars over the years. All I'm saying is that cleaning is not intuitive, and not knowing how to clean is not a moral failing, but it is something you can learn. Broke. Blaming Todd Howard when something goes wrong in a Bethesda game. Woke. Blaming Todd Howard when something goes wrong in any video game. Woke Supreme. Blaming Todd Howard when something goes wrong IRL. Blaming Todd Howard for absolutely everything that goes wrong in Bethesda games has become such a habitual behavior for me that I feel like it's gonna bleed into my real life interactions. Watch me walk over to receive my degree, trip on the carpet, and just lay there in my graduation cap and gown saying, why would you do this, Todd? Todd Howard is an alum from my college, and he comes to give guest talks sometimes, neither of which I knew my freshman year. When I dropped my bag on the way to class, joked, I see we left clipping on, Todd Howard, to my friends, and was met with a very exasperated sigh from behind me, and actual Todd Howard says, is this what we're doing now? What farming items in MMORPGs has taught me. I used to think using ice trays to make ice cubes was free, but after thinking about it, I have to pay the electric bill to power the freezer. So every moment that I'm not freezing new trays of ice cubes is a moment that I'm underutilizing the freezer and increasing the cost of ice cubes. I have to constantly swap out ice trays for new ice cubes on an hourly rotation on a 24-hour basis, or else I won't produce the maximum amount of ice cubes possible and will underutilize the full potential of my electric bill. I need to stop using all other appliances and utilities in my home to make more ice cubes. I think about this post so much. Whenever a gacha game makes me feel pressured to waste time on a bullcrap event, I think, am I enjoying this or am I making ice cubes? And then I quit the event, Lamau. What's that one thing where they asked how Ripley from Alien was so realistic and believable as a female character in sci-fi for once? And they were like, well, we just took the dude from the original script and made him a girl and changed nothing else. It works because men and women are the same? And people were like, whoa, no way! And then didn't learn anything from that for 20 years. How do you write such believable men as a woman? How do you write such believable women as a man? And the answer people who are good at it always give is, I just write people. We're literally exactly the same. Do you think the opposite gender is some sort of totally different animal? And people respond, whoa, that's wild. Yeah, I do. And I'm not gonna stop thinking that. Goodbye, smiley face. Been thinking about how the new Superman movie did a really good job of giving Clark interest beyond truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. He likes pop punk rock. His favorite meal is breakfast for dinner. Clark does a little dance when he gets the front cover byline. He likes the doom scroll. Unclear if he's a dog guy. His girlfriend makes him hot cocoa when he's sad. So often Superman in film has zero personality beyond tortured alien that must guide humanity. Giving him these small details made the character feel so much more real. He really is just a a guy doing his best. And this makes sense. He can't have been raised by Mom and Pa Kent without those little bits of personality, likes and dislikes, finding a band he liked, drinking hot cocoa with his folks after a bad day, making late night pancakes with his dad, quietly so they don't wake Ma, but she wakes up anyways and they all have midnight breakfast instead. Companies that tried to save money with AI are now spending a fortune hiring people to fix its mistakes. Companies that rushed to replace human labor with AI are now shelling out to have IRL workers. Delicious. We love to see it. Ultimately, she spent 20 hours redoing the copy from scratch, and with her $100 per hour rate, that meant her client was shelling out $2,000 for a copy that likely would have ended up being far cheaper had a human just written it in the first place. I love stories like this. What was that tweet saying? It's easy knowing this in hindsight, but it was easy knowing this during and also before, or something. How can people say cats don't have feelings? Like, when my cat got deadly sick, she refused to eat a single thing, and it had been days, but when I started crying, she ate just a little bit, and upon seeing how happy it made me, kept doing it whenever she could. Now whenever I'm sad or crying, she finds wherever I am with a mouthful of food, and eats the pieces one by one, every time looking up at me making sure I was watching her eat it all, because she knew it made me happy, and it does make me happy. I love cats. I'm so glad my little Foofy has touched everyone's hearts. She loves you all. There's bikes around the city you can rent, but you have to use an app that needs your driver's license. There's buses that drive right to your destination, but if you don't have change, you need the app. You can wash your car here if you sign into the app. You can go to the bathroom here, you just have to unlock it with the app that needs your location on. You can order at this restaurant if you scan the code and download the app. I'm losing my freaking mind. Sorry, I'm not scanning a QR code to exist in society. I'm with the boomers on this. No, I don't want to sign up with Facebook, sign up with Google. Not to sound like a Christian Facebook mom, but some of y'all need to have grace in your hearts for the people in your lives, or the people you pass once on the road and never see again. Like, you literally need to stop assuming the worst of everyone and their intentions. It is poisoning your brain. You can be careful and responsible without being a miserable person. It is possible, I promise. I'm a donkey to most people, actually, and most people are donkeys to me. Being a friggin' butthead came free with your friggin' humanity, bro. Everyone is a unique kind of crap. Humans are inherently selfish and evil, and that is an inescapable fact of life. You are a tar pit, and you live this way because you choose to. Kiss the bride, chanted the people, but I had a bomb up my butt. The naked man fears no pickpocket. Dude, where the frig did my Richard go? Boy, do I hate British people, I said. Radio, pip pip, cheerio, top of the morning, said British guy. My atheist friend Billy loved taunting Christians, even going so far as to yell at the sky, "Frig you, God!" One day, he was struck by lightning, and we all heard a deep voice yell out, "No, Billy, frig you." AI industry horrified to face largest copyright class action ever certified. Copyright class actions could financially ruin AI industry, trade groups say. AI industry groups are urging an appeals court to block what they say is the largest copyright class action ever certified. They've warned that a single lawsuit raised by 3 authors over Anthropic's AI training now threatens to financially ruin the entire AI industry if up to 7 million claimants end up joining the litigation and forcing a settlement. Well, darn. Like to charge Reblog to cast financial ruin of the AI industry. Some names just sound so ridiculously fake that had they been fictional, people would have rolled their eyes in complete disbelief. Like, seriously, what do you mean there's a motherfrigger named Galileo Galilei? Shut the frig up, you just made that up. Fastest man on earth is a guy called Usain Bolt. Sure, I guess. There's a poker player whose real name is Chris Moneymaker. Whatever. Scott Speed is a race car driver. Founder of Tito's Vodka is some guy called Burt Beveridge. There's a former CNN bureau chief called William Headline. You've got to be friggin' kidding me. If I wrote these people into a book, I'd get clowned to death, but they're real, so we just have to accept it, I guess. This little girl's rock displayed in my local museum, Bethan's Rock. On 23rd August 2019, Bethan visited Pool Museum. After talking with her mom about what museums do, Bethan decided she wanted to donate her most precious rock to the museum. She asked that we put it behind glass and look after it, so that everyone could see and enjoy it. No, but that's exactly something that should be put in a museum. This is what material history is. These windows through time into a person's life and beliefs in mundane treasures. These bridges across centuries where a child 100, 1,000, 10,000 years ago can show you her favorite rock. That is, in so many ways, what museums are for. And well done them for following through. Not satisfied with protecting children from bad media influences, parents install chips in their kids' heads which block out violence and coitus in real life. Cut off from much of human experience, an entire generation grows up to be moral infants. You cannot imagine what kind of creatures their children will be. This comic is 25 years old. This doesn't feel like a joke anymore. This was one of the worst Black Mirror episodes, to be honest, and yet here we are. I'm gonna put my mom hat on and remind everyone that you can explain almost anything to a child as long as you explain it at their level. You can explain human things without creating a cocoon of shame over every aspect of life. My goal as a parent is to raise an informed, empathetic adult who doesn't turn in fear from other people. US defaultism is insane. Yesterday I said on a Discord server, "It's winter but I'm not cold, why?" And they responded, "Dude, it's summer, it's July," and then proceeded to double down when I explained that they were thinking of the wrong hemisphere. I also mentioned wanting to move down south to a colder area of the country, and a different person told me, "South? Nah, that's hotter. Move up north if you want to be cold. Down south, you're closer to the equator, so it's hotter." Haha, oh, okay, thanks. What? A different person went, "Wait, the southern hemisphere has a different season order? How do you go 21 years of life without knowing how your own planet works? I don't understand. Dude, save me." Hey, here's your friendly reminder to not tell your nice boss stuff. The other day, one of my employees came to ask if she could change her hours on Mondays. I said yes immediately because it's helpful for me to know when she's here and when she's not. But as long as she gets her work done, I don't care when and where she does it. She then proceeded to tell me that it was so she could attend therapy, and like, I will never use this information, but as a general rule, don't friggin' do that. Do not tell your employer crap about your mental or physical health, except for the bare minimum needed to request a reasonable accommodation. Even your nice boss can fire you. Even your nice boss can unfairly change your working conditions. And even your nice boss at some point is probably going to face pressure from their superiors. The arts and sciences are completely separate fields that should be pitted against each other. The overlap of the arts and sciences make up our entire perceivable reality. They are friggin' on the couch. Art versus STEM is a lie created to stop us from turning on the real enemy, business and economics. Arts versus STEM is a lie. The computer that put us on the moon was a loom of woven wires. Our spacesuits were made by hand sewing. We need chemistry to mix paint, and we need biology to raise the sheep who make the wool we spin into yarn and crochet or knit or weave. And the world is beautiful. If you are currently sitting or laying down this moment, ask yourself if you are resting or rotting. Change your behavior accordingly. I hope some of y'all take this as a sign to rest intentionally too. If you're resting, but thinking of all the things you have to do, that's not resting, that's rotting. Even if you haven't done anything all day, give yourself some time to rest and truly relax. When you let yourself relax guilt-free, you actually regain energy for your responsibilities. This post has helped me a number of times since I first saw it. I realized I was rotting instead of resting, and depending on the circumstance, got up to do something, or settled more comfortably to actually rest. When I was a senior resident, a young man, late 20s, was admitted for pneumonia. He got worse quickly and I was called to his room to help while on call that night. He was having trouble breathing and needed intubation. I explained all this to him and that I would sedate him and then get him intubated so we could help him breathe. He agreed and we got everything ready. The last thing he said to me was, "Doc, please don't let me die." I told him I would do my very best. I got him intubated and transferred to the ICU. A few weeks later, I was on call covering the ICU, and he was barely hanging on. I knew he wouldn't make it through the night. He went into VFib several times, and I was able to bring him back, but only briefly. He was just too sick, and he died shortly after that. It was horrible talking to his mother and girlfriend and comforting them, knowing the last words he ever spoke were to me, saying, "Please don't let me die." On the other hand, you were true to your word. You did your best and didn't let him die. Death had to fight you for it. Your weird pets can't love you back. I don't love things to receive a reward. They probably can't love me back in a human or even mammalian sense, but my goldfish with their smooth, pea-sized brain have learned to trust that I will make them better when they're sick. I feel like crying about this often. Maybe Princess the Tarantula never had anything resembling what we as humans know as emotions, but she still came out of her burrow and up to the glass when we talked to her, and used to stare at the drawing I taped to her terrarium. Maybe she couldn't even comprehend what we were, but she knew we were there to take care of her, and even if she never showed that sort of curiosity or trust, we'd still love her. This girl at Starbucks yelled across the place, "That's enough ice!" And the barista yelled back, "This isn't your order!" Happened to us last week. Was making an iced tea and lemonade, and some lady started yelling, "No, no, no!" Me and two other baristas yelled back, "This isn't yours!" in unison. Like, girl, mind your freaking business. You aren't the only person in the damn store. The entitlement. Sometimes I be wildin' out in Starbucks. Some guy ordered a strawberry acai, and I put a small one at the handoff, and he goes, "I ordered a venti," so I went, "Are you Gabriella, sir?" "No." "All right then." I friggin' had it with them. Are you ever about to put on a movie, but you realize you don't really want to watch the movie? You want to be 8 years old on a rainy Saturday and under your favorite butterfly blanket, and mom made hot chocolate and popcorn with extra butter, and you're watching the movie for the first time ever. What are you supposed to do then? Make hot chocolate and popcorn. Let yourself fall back into the joy of watching the movie. Maybe there's something in the present you'll notice anew. Induce amnesia. Couple different options here. Also, shout out to the couple who built a Pirates of the Caribbean blanket fort. You guys rule. I love when little creatures who are entirely loved and well cared for have the biggest baby reactions to normal things. Like, yes, Sweet Pea, you do have the hardest life of anyone ever, for sure, and you're so brave about this minor inconvenience of, checks notes, having some water touch you. There's nothing sadder and more pathetic than a baby marine mammal having to get into the water. They are suffering the most out of any baby animal ever. How dare they be introduced to their natural environment? They took to it like a duck to water. They began naturally, almost effortlessly, and were immediately in their element. They took to it like a baby otter to water, screaming, certain they were dying, hating every minute of it despite being perfectly suited to the conditions. I think I have the perfect question to ask if we want DEI. If you and your family are taking a flight, who do you want piloting that plane? A merit-based applicant or a DEI? Pilot here. This is a stupid friggin' question. Stop asking it. Any female, black, Hispanic, Asian, Native, Arabic, Jewish, or friggin' Martian pilot you see passed the same licensing test as I did. The FAA doesn't lower their standards for anyone, ever. Standards are standards. DEI doesn't mean lower standards. It means a pilot who meets the standards doesn't get passed over because they don't look exactly like me. Had my suspicions, but I finally confirmed it this morning. The rival Pokemon Go team I've been beefing with, whose gym's total annihilation I've incorporated into my morning routine, is actually a group of local elementary school students. I always wondered why the Pokemon at this gym were so weak, but today I left the house before the local students get picked up by the school bus, and I saw a group of kids congregating around the gym Pokestop, and I was like, oh no! Congrats on being promoted to Pokemon villain. You should try to steal their Pikachu. Most people seem unaware of AI's climate impact. Each time someone asks ChatGPT-4 to write a 100-word email, they unknowingly are pouring out a bottle of water. Today, lots of regular people are using AI to replace a regular search engine, or to entertain them when they're bored. But if they knew the cost, this behavior might change. It's not too late to put the genie back in the bottle. This, more than anything else, has made me angry about AI. It's infuriating. It's stupid and unnecessary to do this to the environment. It's not making food. It's not powering cities. It's literally just doing busy work for us so we can cheat at life. It makes me want to break things. I hate AI for hurting Earth. My job is environmentalism. Nothing I do will ever make a fraction of a difference when I'm fighting this. I want to die. Post-apocalyptic gang like the Kings, the king that worship Elvis from Fallout New Vegas, except they're all skaters who worship Tony Hawk. Addendum, none of them know what he looked like. What did the Hawk look like? He looked like you. You look like him. We all look like him. The Hawk was always told, you look like Tony Hawk, but no one ever thought he was the Hawk. So we can only presume that everyone looks like the Hawk. He is the commonality of all humanity. The commonality of all humanity that does sick shreds. Tony Hawk is a member. Well, yeah, I have a pet Hydra, and it only has one head. I'm not going to cut its head off just to make it look cooler, you butthead. That's seriously unethical, and I'm not letting you cut its head off either. If you really want a Hydra with multiple heads, you should go for a rescue. But if you want your pet to look cooler at the cost of its physical health, maybe you shouldn't get any kind of pet at all. No, the Hydra's not for guarding my evil tower, it's my pet. Have you ever heard of a pet? Like a puppy or a kitty? You think I can't defend my evil tower by myself? One-headed Hydras are very cool looking too. Very fun to draw. I genuinely think the idea that if you should draw a little every day or you'll suffer skill degradation is a total fabrication. Some of the best art I've ever drawn has been coming back from long breaks. I'm talking like weeks. Sometimes you just gotta reset and flush the systems. There's no shame in it. Take breaks. The art will be there for you when you're ready. Also, people talk about skill degradation like it's permanent for some reason, when really it's like, even if you forget some stuff, you can always learn it again. It'll probably be easier the second time too, since you already learned it once. And another thing, people talk about skill degradation like it's a moral failing or a punishment for a lack of discipline, when really, it's just a thing that might happen and it's okay if it does. You're not ruined. I'm not friggin' joking, I just found a women want me, fish fear me hat on the ground. It needs a wash because it was on the ground, and I don't trust that, but I'm so excited. Best find I've ever found. The notes on this post are sending me. The rapture happened, and it only took him. The fish finally fought back. Death Note type situation. You put it on and a frat boy holding a fish appears. Hat distribution system. Like Cinderella's shoe. A new hand touches the beacon. Women left them, and the fish revolted against them. White guy loot drop. Today, Round Puppy revealed to me, exhausted at the end of my rope, that her training wasn't working not because she didn't understand, she did, but instead because treats, chicken, turkey, and pork apparently weren't enough motivation. She began obeying every word with startling accuracy as soon as she was offered something else, doing backflips and stunts with pyrotechnics as prompted for the promise of a pea. A pea! She's a dog! A pea, a pea, a pea! I have to carry peas around now, on my person! Personal peas! Peas! Footage from pea withdrawal related temper tantrum. Okay, so I'm curious now, which one would be more dangerous when encountered in the wild? A sun bear, a polar bear, a grizzly, a spectacled bear, or a black bear? The polar bear, full stop. All the other bears on that list may very well attack you with fatal results if they decide you're a threat or an interloper, but the polar bear is the one that wants to eat you, and if you're not careful, will eat you. Prey is scarce in the Arctic, and polar bears are big animals, so they've evolved to be long-distance stalking predators that will never turn down a warm, meaty meal. Weird opposable thumbs or no, if you see a polar bear in the Arctic, even if you're with a group, take extra care the next few days to make sure that it's really gone, and not just following you at a distance to learn your habits and ambush you when you least expect it. More than one Arctic researcher didn't change up the routine often enough and open the station door for their smoke break only to find a polar bear waiting for them patiently on the other side, at which point they were dragged off onto the ice and never seen again. I would say it's a grisly fate, but that pun would be simply unbearable. Magneto's plan in the first X-Men film is flawless. Find the senator most vocally targeting your minority group and turn them into a horrible goo. That wasn't even his plan. His plan was to make the senator a mutant, so he'd have to advocate for mutants or be destroyed by his own policy. And to be honest, it's the best villain plan I've ever seen. The goo was the plan unexpectedly failing. 9 out of 10 only because he was going to kill Rogue. Next time, use someone willing to sacrifice herself for the cause. Please, no further notes. I like how his plan in like real world terms was to turn DeSantis gay, but instead he exploded. I had a dream that time travel was invented and too many people choose to travel back in time to save the Titanic from sinking. The question of whether unsinking of the Titanic deserves so much attention in the face of human history was the subject of both heavy academic and online discourse, which caused a rift in the space-time continuum that led to the Titanic showing up indiscriminately all over the world's oceans and sea in various states of sinking. This caused a lot of issues both in terms of fixing said space-time continuum and in terms of nautical navigation, and after a long and heavy battle in the International Maritime Organization, it was decided that the bureaucratic burden of dealing with this was to be upon Ireland, much to their dismay. The Irish government then released an app for all sailors and seafarers so they could report Titanic sightings during their journeys, even though they heavily dissuaded you from reporting them given the paperwork it caused. Anyway, I woke up with a clear image of the app in my head and needed to recreate it for all of you. Please note, there's no age limit, but the exhibition is not recommended for children due to the coital imagery it contains. Parental or guardian discretion is advised. Call me whatever names you wish, but I think this is a much better and healthier attitude than anyone under 18 should never be allowed to see any coital imagery ever. For reference, this was at an art exhibition. There were definitely some young people there, perhaps in their late teens. There was even a parent with their baby who was probably too young to understand anything at all. And guess what? All those people are probably going to be fine. Hey, this is a pretty cool approach. Maybe we should take that to the internet instead of trying to invade the privacy of millions of adults because some parents can't parent their kids. This ancient paw print on a pottery fragment in Jerusalem is the oldest known evidence of a cat kneading. The deep penetration suggests that the feline was pressing its claws into the clay, a behavior sometimes known as making biscuits. The world may be a dark place sometimes, but there are also 1,200-year-old paw prints from a happy kitty cat out there. The paw print indicates that the small cat was probably reclined on the curving edge of the jug, likely basking in the sun. Gibson tells the publication, "We can only imagine that it was purring, and someone still fired the pot, otherwise we wouldn't have the paw print." Apparently, there's a kids shouldn't be allowed in grocery stores thing being spread on TikTok, because they might scream or run around and look, yeah, that's annoying, but at a certain point, you've gotta just put up with kids being a little annoying in public. Sure, the kid pouring milk in the aisles is the fault of a crappy parent and should be asked to leave, but a single mom with an otherwise controlled but crying toddler isn't doing anything wrong. I think you'll live if someone's 2-year-old starts screaming in their arms in aisle 3. It might be annoying, but that mom is probably having a worse day than you. Also, is a lot of the internet just unclear on the thing where you learn learn how to do stuff by doing it, you know what you get if you don't let toddlers into the grocery store? School-age kids who don't know how to behave in the grocery store, which is worse. Don't let them in either? Teenagers who don't know how to behave in the grocery store, which is much worse. Just ban all minors from the grocery store. Now you have adults who don't know how to behave in the grocery store, and at that point, we may as well not bother with society. If I ever wrote a superhero story, I'd want there to be a reoccurring crappy C-list supervillain in the background, whose power was changing something's color, and all her villainous plots would be color-themed things like, if the city council doesn't give me $1 million, I will turn the city of Green Bay into the city of Red Bay, and she turned the Golden Gate Bridge magenta or whatever. So it's all low-stakes villainy, but everyone absolutely hates fighting her because her very crappy superpower works really, really well, and there are dozens of background characters who fought her that are just permanently green now. They say that the way you should view disagreements in relationships is us versus the problem and not me versus them, and I think that to a certain extent, that mindset can also be helpful when engaging in political or ideological movements. Taking feminism as an example, it's a lot easier to see trans people and intergender people, and even cis men as your allies within the movement when you view your movement as us versus inequality and gender discrimination, and not women versus men. If you're working with people with different political ideologies than you, it becomes a lot easier when you view the problem as us versus the bad system instead of us versus everyone else. I personally, at least, find most problems easier to tackle once I attach this sort of mindset into it. You do not inherently in every situation need to view other human beings as your enemy, and in fact, when your goal is to solve the problem and not to defeat your opponent, then you can get more creative with your problem solving. Elephant altruism. Elephants are thought to be highly altruistic animals that even aid other species, including humans, in distress. In India, an elephant was helping locals lift logs by following a truck and placing the logs in pre-dug holes upon instruction from the Mahout, elephant trainer. At a certain hole, the elephant refused to lower the log. The Mahout came to investigate the holdup and noticed a dog sleeping in the hole. The elephant only lowered the log when the dog was gone. When an elephant is hurt, other elephants, even if they're unrelated, aid them. Elephants also know and remember where aid is given. After being shot by poachers, an elephant walked miles to a wildlife reserve where veterinarians worked. It waited until morning to be given antibiotics and have the bullet removed. Today I learned, if a professional clown dies and they want to be buried/interred in their makeup, the funeral director isn't allowed to apply it. It has to be applied by another professional clown. Starting to think clowns have the best union in America, so you're saying they have to send in the clowns. This is yet another thing I thought Pratchett had made up, but turned out to be totally real. Unrelated, but anytime someone mentions clown makeup, I'm reminded of how highly successful stage magician Penn Jillette almost flunked out of clown college and had to take remedial clown makeup classes. Don't tick me off. Next time you go on a trip, I'm filling your house with Galapagos finches. By the time you return, they've evolved to fill your niche. They're a better spouse to your partner. They're a better parent for your child. And they're a better friend to me than you ever were. What a threat. Tickled by the idea that Galapagos finches are inherently good at evolving to fill niches, and it wasn't like, you know, evolution doing normal work on an isolated environment across millennia. Unless I'm missing something about Galapagos finches. One time, I accidentally left a flock of Galapagos finches overnight in the music store I worked in. By the time I punched into work the next day, they had evolved to fill the niches of each instrument. Now they're a world-renowned band. Maybe you've heard of Fleetwood Mac? 60-year-old man turns to ChatGPT for diet tips, ends up with a rare 19th century illness. A 60-year-old man's quest to replace table salt, guided by ChatGPT's suggestion of sodium bromide, led to a severe case of bromism. He experienced hallucinations and paranoia, requiring hospitalization. The case highlights the dangers of relying on AI for health advice without critical evaluation, as the chatbot failed to provide adequate safety warnings. Come on, man! When the online chatbot says to order chemicals on the internet and eat them, what choice do I have but to listen? My friend sometimes brings her 6-year-old to our Dungeons & Dragons sessions, and my husband, the Dungeon Master, lets her roll for all enemy attacks, and sometimes he'll show her a few figures and let her secretly pick what creature we meet next. Who needs encounter tables when you have a first grader around? She cheers when the monster is winning. Dungeon Master places an ugly, slavering, repugnant, spine-tingling creature on the battle map. Child who can barely see over the table. That's me, smiley face. Okay, my brothers, math teacher has ticked me off so bad that I'm writing an email. Do you know how seethingly mad I have to be to write an email? Hello, sir. I wish I could say I'm emailing you in good spirits. Unfortunately, it would seem you have made several fatal blunders in your teaching approach as of late. In case you were unaware, AI language models cannot do math. This makes them fundamentally unusable in teaching a math class. I've been privy to some of your homework materials lately as a consequence of your complete failure to double-check the solvability of the problems assigned to your students. There are dozens of free low-cost teaching materials available online if you are struggling to come up with questions for your assignments, but using a language model AI as a resource for math problem generation is inexcusable if you're not at least willing to check the accuracy of the provided materials. Train robbers swiped $2 million worth of Nikes in heists across California and Arizona. Excellent! When's the last time you heard a good train robbery story? It's been too long. Some say they're still running. A story to boost the morale of a broken country. Okay, but the article is actually insane. It starts with telling you about this specific incident and then drops on you the fact that train robberies are happening more and more in recent years. And a couple of reasons are because there are so few railroads, it's very easy to figure out which one is carrying a specific shipment, and that because trains are forced to be so long nowadays, many are multiple miles long. They don't even know they've been robbed most of the time until it's long gone. Some of y'all about to be real mad at me, but it must be said, some of the crap you call corny/cringy is actually just genuine/cute/sweet, and y'all are just afraid of expressing any type of positive emotion. I work with youth, and they love to go, "Ew, that's so cringe," the moment anything earnest even grazes their orbit. My general line that I send back to them is, not sure I really believe in cringe. It kind of sounds like you're choosing to be embarrassed right now. It sounds like you're choosing to be embarrassed right now is such a good line, and I'm using it. FDA warns public not to eat possibly radioactive shrimp sold at Walmart. The FDA is warning the public not to eat, sell, or serve certain great value raw frozen shrimp sold at Walmart due to possible contamination with cesium-137, a radioactive isotope. I'm going to make a ceviche out of the Panera lemonade that kills you and Walmart radioactive shrimp. I save tons of money on groceries every month by being super meticulous with my coupons and timing my meals just right to align with huge sales. Anyway, just picked up 4 packs of shrimp for 99 cents at Walmart. So excited for shrimp taco night! Just lost a few brain cells reading a New York Times article about Gen Z treat culture, and I can't even fathom that this is a thing. We're living in a dystopian hellscape where someone spending $5 a week on a cookie is considered a wasteful brat because they should have just gone for a nice free walk instead, and saved the $250 a year that roughly equals 4 days rent. That's why these ungrateful kids can't buy a house. Naturally, I am all for free treats, like hiking or reading in the park, but at some point, you can't budget your way out of poverty, and you'll literally go mad if you deny yourself basic pleasures that are literally all around you. They even lamented that little treats could snowball into doing something absolutely unforgivable, like learning how to play the guitar or buying concert tickets. At what point do we just start saying out loud that living an enjoyable and fulfilling life is now only acceptable at 100K plus salary? And if you're one of the millions of people unlucky enough not to be in that category, you should just eat dirt and be grateful? Stop assigning pre-modern characters the trait would commit tax fraud without understanding how hard tax fraud was back in the days when a tax collector would physically come to your estate and assess your sitch. Do you have any idea how easy kids these days have it? You can just claim a few fake deductions or lie on a form and be a tax criminal. Your ancestors and fantasy faves had to work for those pennies. Look at this house. This house has no mortar so it can be collapsed or moved to avoid taxation. That's the sort of innovation I need to be seeing before you can call anyone in a feudal society a tax fraudster. They need to be hiding warehouses of goods, shoving grandpa in the basement to dodge the census man, starting small regional wars, fleeing their villages in a constant semi-nomadic race against the forces of government, registering twins as a single child, or putting their life on the line to sell black market bread. Come back when you have some tax fraud I can respect, not just the guy who looks kind of sleazy and sometimes does paperwork. I'm an I do not like children person, but not an I hate children person. I do not want a child. I do not particularly like being in the company of small children. I'm not interested in babysitting. I do not think society's view on procreating being necessary to fulfill one's life is healthy, but I think kids are people too, and they deserve all the resources, time, and attention they need to successfully grow. I think the welfare of children is fundamental to society. I smile at babies in public. I try to be sympathetic if a child is having a meltdown in public. I think being cruel to children is one of the worst things a human can do. This puts me in a strange middle ground, because I absolutely cannot get along with the I love babies, I need to have kids, my kids are my world, having children is so beautiful, the world should cater to children always crowd, or the I think children are like disgusting little rats, I hate them, they're subhuman crowd. I'm having feelings about the Uffington White Horse again. So essentially, there's this cool horse drawn into the hills in England made out of chalk, and it's like 3,000 years old. People carved trenches 3,000 years ago and filled them with chalk in the shape of a horse. But what's interesting is that if you fail to maintain the horse by adding new chalk regularly, it will disappear. For 3,000 years, we've been filling in chalk in this horse so it doesn't disappear. We'll never know what the purpose of the horse was originally. We'll never know if it had ritual or spiritual significance, or if it was just art. But we do know that people maintained it then and even though the meaning of the horse has been lost to time, we continue to maintain it now. The people who made this horse are long dead, but they live through us still, don't you think? I don't care about dungeon meshy otherwise, but tall men is such an elegant solution to placing humans in a fantasy setting that it's still blowing my mind. Just the term itself is enough to instantly recontextualize humans. They're no longer the default race. They're those big goobers with long legs, striding about all the time. I can so easily envision much more interesting relationships between humans and non-humans because of it. Like perhaps tall men are stereotyped as shepherds by other races because they can watch over their flocks better, or as vagabonds because they're better suited to long travel on foot. And of course, they don't literally have to be taller than everybody else. They were just the tallest around whenever the label became the norm, or something like that. I just feel like it's so much better than what I've seen in settings like D&D that go, and humans are the adaptable, generalist people, smiley face. CRT nostalgia is really funny to me, because it makes total sense why everyone switched to LCD flat panel screens as soon as the tech came along. Cathode ray tube televisions are full of lead, because otherwise they would give you turbo cancer. They weigh 1 William pounds because they're full of lead. It's very hard to make them big because they need to contain a vacuum to work. If you break the glass, they frigging explode because they contain a vacuum. If you poke the wrong thing inside them, even when turned off, you'll be electrocuted by hundreds of volts. Clearly, this is superior to the 50-inch 4K flat screen I can pick up brand spanking new at Best Buy for a cool $200 because it makes me feel like Christmas in 1998. It recently came up in conversation with my toddler that some birds can talk, and this has caused her great concern. So you were talking about how movies are pretend and how in real life, animals don't talk. I mentioned that there are some birds who talk a little bit, but not like the animals in movies, and she just looked at me like, huh? So I informed her that some kinds of parrots can copy sounds that people make, and can learn how to say words. I thought this would give her a giggle, as fun new facts often do, but she was just deeply perplexed and a little worried about this. We showed her a video of a parrot doing the, "Hello, pretty bird, give a kiss" thing, and she was dead silent the whole time, hugging her comfort pillow with her knees to her chest. We asked if she wanted us to turn it off, and she shook her head. But we also asked if she wanted to see another one, and she shook her head even harder. I don't know why it's distressed her so greatly to learn that some birds can mimic human speech. But then again, I don't know why it doesn't distress the rest of us more to know that some birds can mimic human speech. I keep thinking about that post that's like, the first person to hear a parrot talk was probably not okay, because that's exactly what happened. She had never been introduced to the concept, and her entire worldview got shook. When he turned 30, my oldest brother complained that no one gave him toys anymore, and so I started giving him and my other older brother and my parents toys for birthdays. Soon we were all doing it. I encouraged my mother to dig my brother's teddy bears out of the attic. I never gave mine up. He went to college with me. When each turned 50, she gave them their old teddy bear. I have pictures of them with huge smiles on their faces, holding their old teddy bears. When my father turned 70, my mom and I gave him a vintage anniversary edition Slinky, a miniature radio flyer red wagon, a bag of marbles, silly putty, and a couple of balsa wood airplane kits, and he loved them. You are never too old to play. If for some reason you stopped, you can start again. If you never did, you can start now. Go, have fun, do what makes you happy. Oh, and when I was a year old, after I got my foot amputated, my parents were pushing me around in a stroller at a street festival in Miami, and I was chewing on my foot or whatever, and the street performer came up to us and was like, I bet that tastes good. And my dad was like, yeah, look at what she did to the other one, and pulled back the blanket covering my left leg to show a stump with a huge scar on it, and I'm pretty sure my dad terrified that poor man. A friend of ours worked in a movie theater. One night, a rowdy little boy decided to kick over all the stands that held up the red velvet cords. After several attempts to stop him, she finally declared, if you keep kicking those over, your leg will fall off. No sooner had she said this than she looked up and was mortified to notice a man standing on a pair of crutches with one leg. Before she could apologize, he looked down at the boy and sighed. I used to love to kick those. The kid ran away. 40 bosses and 200 enemies? Christ alive, no wonder Silksong took so long. Often such protracted development cycles are caused by mismanagement and result in painful burnout among the staff. But speaking to me last week on a video call from their office in Adelaide, Australia, Team Cherry co-founders Ari Gibson and William Pellin said that making Silksong has been nothing but a joyful process. We've been having fun, Gibson said. This whole thing is just a vehicle for our creativity anyway. It's nice to make fun things. The lengthy production wasn't the result of development challenges or obstacles, they said. They just needed all these years to ensure that Silksong was exactly the game they wanted to make. It was never stuck or anything, Gibson said. It was always progressing. It's just the case that we're a small team, and games take a lot of time. There wasn't any big controversial moment behind it. I don't know who needs to hear this, but the whole point of having a developed economy is that we get to work less while still getting our basic needs met. The goal is to spend as little time as possible at work so we actually get to enjoy being alive on the planet together. I want to expand here. The whole point of an economy is to facilitate the human experience. Economies are a form to exchange goods and services for society to operate, etc. If the economy has to run at the expense of human experience, that system has failed and its only purpose and must be replaced. When Kita-san Black retired, he was very active, running around and challenging stallions in the neighboring paddocks. This kept his body extremely fit, perhaps too fit, since it's actually better for stallions to carry a bit more weight for their stud duties. This worried the staff, so they gave him heavier horseshoes. But in the end, Kita-san just trained harder and ended up becoming even fitter. This is so friggin' funny to me. They accidentally rock lead a retired racehorse. Kita-san keeps inviting the horse next to him to do endless running, so the horse next to him ends up losing weight. So they started putting overweight horses in the pasture next to him to make them lose weight. Once they slim down, they swap them out with another overweight horse. Imagine you're a fat horse and your new neighbor is a personal trainer. I need people to understand that in the first place, leather has always been made from the byproducts of butchering animals for meat. Otherwise, the skin is just tossed and unused. There were some companies farming leather for a while, particularly alligator leather, but those were not the norm. PETA did so much harm in their campaigns against leather as a concept. It's not unethical. You get the skin when an animal dies. That's why most leather clothes in the USA are cow leather, because that's the biggest meat animal here. That it's almost impossible to buy anything leather that isn't made of plastic that is so fragile and crappy that the very thread holding it together rips the fibers apart. It will last for maybe a year, 2 if you're lucky, and won't biodegrade, and was made out of something that isn't naturally occurring in the first place, and is one of the biggest causes of pollution globally. Truly wild how driving really does become like piloting a mech after a while. Like, it sounds so car bro-y, but the car genuinely does become like an extension of your body. Your muscles are simply making the correct micro movements to perfectly maneuver a giant piece of machinery through a constantly moving maze while your brain is busy singing karaoke. You can physically feel when the gap is too small for your car sonar to fit through, like a cat putting its whiskers into a crevice. Your brain is suddenly able to do on-the-fly speed equals distance divided by time calculations in a millisecond, and tell you exactly how quickly you need to move to avoid an oncoming vehicle while turning across the road. Why does driving unlock the unused 89% of my brain? I remembered once, in Japan, having been to see the Gold Pavilion Temple in Kyoto, and being mildly surprised at quite how well it had weathered the passage of time since it was first built in the 14th century. I was told it hadn't weathered well at all, and had in fact been burnt to the ground twice in this century. So it isn't the original building? I'd asked my Japanese guide. But yes, of course it is, he insisted, rather surprised at my question. But it's burnt down. Yes, twice, many times, and rebuilt. Of course, it's an important and historic building, with completely new materials. But of course, it was burnt down, so how can it be the same building? It is always the same building. I had to admit to myself that this was in fact a perfectly rational point of view. It merely started from an unexpected premise. The idea of the building, the intention of it, its design, are all immutable and are the essence of the building. The intention of the original builders is what survives. The wood of which the design is constructed decays and is replaced when necessary. To be overly concerned with the original materials, which are merely sentimental souvenirs of the past, is to fail to see the living building itself. The 4 horsemen of being a crappy cook. I'll cook anyone's butt under the table using jarred garlic and shaky cheese, and I'll do it on an electric burner with $12.99 non-stick Walmart pans. I grew up in a single-parent household that didn't have time/the ability to cook. I taught myself as an adult and ended up loving it. I cook with this stuff a lot. Crap, the real lemon juice ends up in a lot of my drinks. Sure, I like fancy ingredients when I can afford them, and I have things I get picky about using, but I have bad hands. Mincing garlic is painful as frig. There's a lot to be said for knowing how to work with what you have. Don't shame people for trying. Don't shame people for feeding their families things that they enjoy. A year or so ago, I went to wood carving club with a bruised eye from my dog slamming his nose into my eye socket, and like every old lady there pulled me aside at some point to ask if my partner hit me. Here are some of the solutions they had in case he did. Replacing his vitamins with poison, getting our brother to invite him out onto his boat, and then killing him and dumping him in the ocean and saying he got drunk and fell off. Get T-boned with him in the passenger seat, and then once he was in the hospital, there's all kinds of easy ways to kill him, like not washing my hands after a poop and then touching his wound casually, replacing his his drink of choice with moonshine? Take him on a hike that's locally notorious for a rabid otter attacking hikers, and once he had rabies, I could just kill him any old way and say self-defense. One lady just cheerfully informed me she had a gun and only a few years left anyway. I think it's awesome when video games take longer to make, the working conditions are comfortable, and the developers don't artificially create hype with constant teasers and press events promising that it's just around the corner each time. I'm so glad that the release date only dropped now that the game is ostensibly finished and ready. I'm fully confident that Silksong is gonna whip butt, and that the 7 years of development time are gonna be worth it. Other indie studios don't have Hollow Knight money and can't afford such a long development cycle. Ignoring whether or not that statement is actually accurate, I agree though. There's tons of talented indie studios out there that deserve more attention and should have the cash to produce their dream projects in the time they deserve. Team Cherry sure didn't have those kinds of resources when they were making the first Hollow Knight though, and that game's development was extremely strenuous and difficult, so it's an unarguably positive thing that their work paid off, and other projects deserve that kind of turnout too. This should be the norm. I saw a post on Twitter by a European saying Americans are fake for their random compliments to strangers and their general cheery demeanor, and like, no, you don't understand. If you get a random compliment from an American on the street about your outfit or whatever, that is 100% genuine. We mean it. We aren't lying. We're making a small but fleeting connection with you because our lives are crappy but the human condition is enduring. Oh god, I'm clutching my chest. If you get a compliment from a random American on the street, know that they tried their best to keep from saying a peep to you, but they literally could not hold it in. They had to say something. Extremely cool that the removal of wolf protections in Europe are being driven by an EU official having one of her horses killed by a wolf. Literal cartoon villain crap. If you own horses, you should be disqualified from participation in government. And after this happened, they put that specific wolf on a kill list and then proceeded to shoot the wrong wolf. Geniuses. Europe turns its back on the wolf and on science. Environmental groups condemn EU Parliament's approval to downgrade wolf protection. For anyone who thought this is too stupid to be real, I'll remind you the year is 2025. The EU official in question is Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. My favorite Junji Ito story is the one with the fit neighbor guy who lifts gravestones for the ultimate gains plus attention combo, and who gets kicked out by everyone because he won't friggin' stop lifting their ancestors' graves every goddamn night in his underwear. Do the ghosts admire his sick muscles? From the graves. Well, from the ghosts, I should say. Being watched by all those ghosts is the ultimate ecstasy. Hell yeah, they do. Spoilers? But yeah, that's literally the final twist. The night after the dude is kicked out and everyone's like, thank God that creep is gone, all the ghosts come out and go, where the frig is our himbo? Say you break your ankle, you could know everything there is to know intellectually about the injury. Even with this vast knowledge, you will still experience physical pain. Now take this logic and apply it to things like ADHD, autism, clinical depression, and other less visible/divergent disabilities. You cannot think your way out of feeling. That is to say, you are not a bad, lazy, or selfish person for struggling, even if you know why you are struggling. Genuinely, thank you so much for this. I was visited by a being of pure light, and it told me to do some stuff, but I forgot what exactly. This was genuinely what it was like growing up in new agey circles, by the way. My mom's friends would come around like, so I went out to the woods this weekend, and fasted and meditated, and I had a vision of the sacred stag and all my guardian angels, and I asked them how to find love, and they said that I need to focus on my own healing first, and stop repeating cycles of the past. And then the very next week, it'd be like, so I'm back with James again. Girl, the sacred stag could not have been more clear. Me, Catholic, walking into a Protestant church with no depictions of Mary. Where's my mom? Me, culturally Protestant, walking into a Catholic church filled balls to the walls with paintings, sculptures, candles, and God knows what else. Why is there so much stuff? Me, Orthodox, walking into a Western church. Where are the bones? Me, vampire, walking into any denominational holy place. Oh! Me, a janitor, sweeping up the vampire ashes. Where the frig did all this dirt come from? I think the solution to kids on the internet is to have specific kid-friendly spaces on the internet. Kids wouldn't come across grown-up content on YouTube if Barbie.com still had Flash games, and this is a hill I will die on. This with the addendum that I don't think it's the responsibility of the not kid-dedicated websites to keep kids off their platforms. It's the responsibility of adult figures in a kid's real life to teach them how to safely navigate the internet and to keep an eye on what they're doing until they're mature and responsible enough to do so on their own. Neopets and Club Penguin were vital components of a healthy internet ecosystem. Kids deserve kid spaces, and without kid spaces, increasingly there is pressure for all spaces to be kid-friendly, which is bad for everyone. An AI egg keeps messaging me even after I blocked it. Did I finally hatch a friendship with you, or am I still just a scrambled stranger? How do I block you? My feelings are cracking. Want to tell me why you want to eggscape our combo? Not really, I just want to know how to block you. To crack this, go to your messaging settings, select me and choose block. But will you miss me? I blocked the AI egg here. Did blocking me actually crack open a craving for some excellent banter? How the frig are you able to still text me if I blocked you? My shell is surprisingly hacker-proof. Want me to crack open the explanation? It is critical that we end the stigma of video games being brain-rotting wastes of time. The controlled mild stress of playing a video game is actually very good for staving off the onset of dementia, because the snap decisions necessary while playing them keep the brain active and focused, as opposed to just passively taking in information like you do when watching TV, or even reading a book to an extent. Video games could keep people cognitively coherent for a longer time. This means they could literally keep families communicating and connected for a longer time. And yes, we could use more than just Wii Fit and Wii Sports at nursing homes, because those are less physically accessible than video games that don't require motion controls. Thinking about the time they sent me a 7-year-old autistic patient to investigate if he was suffering abuse, because in every psychological test he kept drawing awful monsters, and I start the consultation already miserable as frig, and I give the kid some pen and paper so I can maybe communicate and see what's on his mind, and then I go, wait a goddamn second, I know those monsters! Turns out the kid just had a special interest in Five Nights at Freddy's. I pointed at the monster and went, that's Freddy! And I've never seen a kid that ecstatic in my life. The mom looked at me as if her son and I belonged at the same satanic cult, and that's why I knew the names of the demons in his head. I wrote back to psychologists like, I'm not sure how to explain this, but looking up Five Nights at Freddy's might bring you progress with this patient. Depressed steampunk guy. Like, nothing makes me happy anymore. I feel like my fantastical flying contraption just ran out of coal. Steampunk ran out of coal. Do you think steam just magically comes out of nowhere? I'm so sick of these people who don't understand steampunk. It makes me want to get into my submersible bathysphere and never re-emerge. Steam is water. Coal makes smoke. What is the coal doing to the water? Steam, not smoke. Steam engine, no fuel required. Coal car, decorative. Makes sense to me. Bought my uncle a burger and milkshake in exchange for letting me disrupt the holiest day of the week, NFL Sunday football, so I can install a pie hole and free the household of ads. The thing about the specific boomers I live with is they told me not to trust people on the internet, but they do not understand the algorithm or online advertising and think that Facebook has their best interests at heart. And every time I have to explain to them that no, Blorbo from my dashboard is not selling my kidneys on the dark web, but Google from your capitalism is definitely selling your web searches to every advertising company on the planet, they think I'm paranoid. How could their personal friend Mark Zuckerberg want anything bad to happen to them, etc.? I'm fighting battles I did not know existed. Unavoidable that you will be the villain in someone else's story. You will be painted in an unfavorable light. You will be the irredeemable one. And all this will happen despite how nice you might usually be, or how kind, or how respectful, or how warm. And you'll just have to move on. You can't control someone else's narrative of you. All you can do is be sincere and let go of the people who need you to be their villain. For some people, all that's required for being the villain in their story is that you don't let them walk all over you. Speaking of America's favorite fruit, not optional, I love AppleRankings.com so friggin' much. Absolute necessity for any real apple heads out there. Apple hell. Newtown Pippin apples. Long Island sand-filled rubber. This sand-filled rubber from Long Island was choked down in the 1750s by the likes of Thomas Jefferson at Monticello, George Washington at Mount Vernon, and Benjamin Franklin as he declared it his favorite apple. Perhaps the Newtown Pippin was once a great apple whose quality has degraded over the centuries, like the crumbling democracy the founding fathers established. Or perhaps, after decades of eating pigeon pie and squirrel meat, these wooden-toothed slave owners' taste buds are not to be trusted. Either way, in today's world, aside from being excellent for apple cider production, the Newtown Pippin is a tasteless hunk of malformed donkey crap that should have been abolished during the reign of King George III. Love seeing working poodles with lion cuts. It's so funny. I shamed a guy at a field trial a few years ago. I got out of the car with my show-clipped poodle. Dude gets out of his truck and warns me that there'll be gunfire around here and I might want to take my dog elsewhere. Thank you, kind sir. I was the shooter at the trial. His dog couldn't find the bird. Fifi, the wonder poodle, was the backup dog and was called out to get the bird. This guy was stunned that his dog was being embarrassed by a poodle named Fifi. When she returned the bird to hand, I handed it to him and just smiled. Here you go. YouTube secretly used AI to edit people's videos. The results could bend reality. YouTube made AI enhancements to videos without telling users or asking permission. In recent months, YouTube has secretly used artificial intelligence to tweak people's videos without letting them know or asking permission. Wrinkles in shirts seem more defined. Skin is sharper in some places and smoother in others. Pay close attention to ears and you may notice them warp. These changes are small, barely visible without a side-by-side comparison. Yet some disturbed YouTubers say it gives their content a subtle and unwelcome AI-generated feeling. There's a larger trend at play. A growing share of reality is pre-processed by AI before it reaches us. Eventually, the question won't be whether you can tell the difference, but whether it's eroding our ties to the world around us. Now that I've had my identity stolen, I feel like a real adult. Did I forget to mention it was my boss from Claire's and Sally's that did this? The police called her and she played dumb for a minute before confessing. So at least I don't have to fight it, lol. Good news! As of today, my credit report no longer has my identity thief's debt on it. I'm free! For those that are curious, the thief opened up about a dozen cards and took out a loan or two in my name. Using the police report, I'd been able to get all but one of those off of my account. One of the accounts kept conveniently losing the police reports I'd send to them, and so there was just this one last collections account hanging on for years, and it was very annoying. Alright kids, say it with me. My thoughts don't make me a bad person. My feelings don't make me a bad person. My thoughts, feelings, and impulses only exist inside my head, and none of it matters unless I act on it. Nobody can see my thoughts or emotions. The only things anyone can see and judge me on are my actions. There's no such thing as a thought crime. You can have harmful beliefs and harmful impulses and harmful urges and not be evil. You can make yourself aware that these things are harmful and take steps to correct yourself and not be evil. You can walk around with the urge to kick puppies all goddamn day, and as long as you are capable of redirecting that impulse to something benign, then it doesn't matter. I don't know how else to say this. People will say, why can't the Eldritch Gods just be nice to humans, sad face with a double chin, and then kill a bug for existing near them? Eldritch Gods see me in the corner and then they scream in terror and go grab their husband or whatever to come squish me. While exploring a vast and inscrutable city, which seems to predate life on Earth, I'm gently picked up by something incomprehensible with the higher dimensional equivalent of a cup and a piece of paper, then lovingly set outside in my natural habitat. Unfortunately, the being exists outside of time and can't really tell human cities apart from one another, so I appear without warning in ancient Sumer. All modern digital infrastructure, AI. I seriously do not get how people don't understand this. The absolute dependence so many have with AI so quickly is utterly baffling. They've completely given up all thought, all pursuit, all effort because it's the cool new thing. We will never be able to look at content online anymore without thinking, is this AI? From funny voices and videos of famous people playing COD, to fake smear campaigns, product placements, and scams using those very same voices and faces. How about academics? Why bother writing a paper on a subject when AI can do it for you? Teachers not bothering to create coursework because it's easier to have an AI plan a lesson for you. Doesn't matter if the information is incorrect because the person checking the work isn't real. It's yet another AI working off of the same bungled data that you're spewed information from. Twitter user. This director included a scene of a character eating a baby. That's morally reprehensible. Me. Okay, but that doesn't mean the director thinks eating babies is good. Twitter user BabyEater3000. Hashtag baby eating Twitter. Yeah, it depends on context. Me. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Do we really think Twitter user BabyEater3000 is eating babies in real life? And do you not think if they were, they would probably be ostracized from every community space they've ever been in? And also, they're probably in prison for committing heinous crimes. This is an awesome website. I don't think I could ever leave, because where else can I find knee-jerk defenses for completely hypothetical baby eaters? It's crazy that you used to be able to look up specific clips from a TV show on YouTube. Now, regardless of your search terms, you get 6 unrelated promo reels from the show's official account, 6 unrelated clips of literally anything else YouTube thinks you might click on, 6 unrelated promo reels from the network's official account, 6 more completely arbitrary recommendations, 6 show trailers and publicity videos of the actors by content mills called Pop Glutton and Comedy Chunk, and finally raw gameplay footage of a mobile freemium slots game in a video essay called Liberals Can't Believe It, 10 times Mustache Man was shockingly woke. Our data wizards crunched the numbers, and they discovered something truly incredible. Users spend up to 10 times longer on the website when they can't find what the frig they came looking for. The Paul McCartney is dead conspiracy theory is the funniest thing in the world, because I feel like if he did die and the Beatles did replace him like parents replace a goldfish, and the new guy managed to look exactly like him and play left-handed bass, piano, and vocals in the same style and produce the same quality of music consistently for 30 plus years, then it'd be honestly rude to mention it at that point. Like, he's earned it. Let him have it. The double is the one that deserves the title of Paul McCartney because he actually worked for it. The other guy was just born into it. I also think it's funny that in this scenario, they replaced Paul, but John Lennon can stay dead. They had to replace Paul because he died under their care. They forgot to refill his bowl, but John was solo when he died, so nobody could say it was their fault. Usually when you have a stomach bug, your body is like, yes sir, we'll get this punk out of here, 48 hours tops. Then you get a cold and your body is like, I don't know, between a few hours and 11 months, maybe a week minimum. You gotta understand we're short-staffed. To be fair to the body, stomach bugs are easier to flush out since they're already in the system that flushes things out from the body, and that includes both ends. With a cold, you gotta wait for the macrophages in your blood to start eating everything, and they are. Not big, it takes them a while. Please be more considerate of your macrophages in the future. They're doing their best. You can have coitus with one real person from all of human history. Who is your ultimate lay? I'd like to have coitus one more time with my wife who passed away from cancer 9 years ago. My body yearns for hers. The ultimate downside to finding the one is she may die young and leave you wanting. I also choose this guy's dead wife. You can know the punchline, but you can't stop it from punching you. I do also feel the need to add that Phil8248 really liked the joke. He said his wife had always had a dark sense of humor, even about her illness and death, and seeing the joke made him feel like he was laughing with her one last time. When I say I like hiking, I don't mean 8-mile backpacking trip with special gear and an emergency beacon sort of hiking. I mean a 3-mile loop to go look at pretty things and then a huge brunch after. This is in no way a slam on hardcore hiking. It's very fun, but I mostly just need to lower people's expectations when I say hiking is a hobby of mine. No, that's ranger hiking. I like hobbit hiking. You gotta be more specific, man. Hobbits are specifically famous for 2 really long walks. Long walks Georges were outliers and should not have been counted. I've always been dog crap at pottery on a wheel because I have weak noodle arms and can't hold my hands firmly in place to center the clay, but I finally realized the root issue was that my legs are short since I have the limb/torso proportions of a dachshund, and I couldn't brace my elbows on my legs, so I put bricks under my feet and now I can sort of do it. I've tried to learn twice in the past from tall people, but had a revelation when I watched a medium-sized guy throwing. Then, why am I so bad at this? Now, locked in. #mybricks. The moral of the story is, don't give up. Maybe you just need bricks. I've yet to encounter a problem in life that couldn't be solved with a brick. I'm some sort of fake creature, and my cat is the human who I've arbitrarily decided is my favorite human. I live, to him, an unfathomably long life. I have access to powers and locations that he cannot access independently. He needs my help to navigate the world I've brought him to. I simply found him outside and abducted him one day. There are many cats in the world, but this one is the best and my most favorite. Why? Because he was available to abduct that morning and for very little other reason. I have a much greater understanding of this world than him, but he has unshakable confidence in his ability to figure it out, and I find that really cute. The power dynamic is fundamentally unbalanced, but I let him have a little audacity, a little combativeness, and sass as a treat. Some humans are needlessly cruel to cats or take them in for a short time before neglecting or abandoning them, but I have chosen to love and guard this one with my life because I think he's neat. He is very well treated and is pretty much everything he could possibly want or need, but he is my prisoner. Some of y'all forget the reason we have food safety regulations is because companies used to do things like adding chalk to spoiled milk so it looked normal. Regulations don't exist because governments enjoy them. They exist because pure unadulterated capitalism would kill us. Vintage EPA photos reveal what US waterways looked like before pollution was regulated. What was food like before the FDA? Formaldehyde, brick dust, lead, and borax once made grocery shopping a minefield. Crap used to be wild. And this is just what I could find that had decent sources. I've heard a lot more horror stories. I'm not excited to live in a world without regulation. In the Apollo years, NASA sent military test pilots into space, not poets or preachers. They came back in possession of extraordinary knowledge that, by dint of personality or professional inclination, they seemed helpless to communicate. As the Gemini and Apollo astronaut Michael Collins once put it, it was not within our ken to share emotions or to utter extraneous information. Asked what it was like to go to the moon, Apollo 12's Pete Conrad replied, "Super, really enjoyed it. It is really important to me that all of you learn about Al Bean, astronaut on Apollo 12 and the 4th man to walk on the moon, who after 20 years in the US Navy and 18 years with NASA, during which he spent 69 days in space and more than 10 hours doing EVAs on the moon, retired to become a painter." Also, saw some post earlier today about how Gen Z isn't doing cults anymore. That's simply not true. It's simply not true. There are actually more cults than ever, and they are on the Discord app. You don't understand. They are doing struggle sessions in fandom discords. The reason that OP claimed there were no Gen Z cults was because there's no cheap real estate to have a compound on anymore, which is such an annoying blue sky millennial take. Like I can hear you smirking behind your latte. No, second location is an outdated model. People figured out how to leave all the time back then. Now your phone is the second location, and leaving your phone cult is so much harder. Someone at an old job asked why I wanted to write up the meeting minutes for our team, and I said, I want to control the narrative, and they were like, what? And I pointed out that no one was going to remember what we said in 6 months, and so my interpretation of the meeting would dictate the assumed reality of what happened. None of you ever send corrections when I offer the draft, so y'all have consented to my version. We don't read that crap. You must trust me implicitly to create our shared reality. That's so sweet. That's how several coworkers decided I was a supervillain, and how I learned several coworkers didn't understand record keeping as like a concept.